Donald Trump. Even when he's not in office, the man finds a way to stay in the headlines, this time for something you wouldn't expect. It seems that Trump, after years of enduring late-night jabs from the likes of Jimmy Kimmel, Stephen Colbert, and Jimmy Fallon, has had enough. He doesn't want the current crop of comedians hosting The Tonight Show, The Late Show, or Jimmy Kimmel Live. Nope. In a recent interview, Trump said he wished Johnny Carson could return. Yes, you heard that right. Johnny Carson, the late Johnny Carson, who passed away in 2005. Trump has always had a flair for the dramatic, but this feels like a whole new level. It's almost as if he's longing for some alternate reality where Carson rises from the grave, takes back his rightful spot behind the desk, and restores what Trump sees as a better, more civil era of late-night TV. But here's the kicker. Carson wasn't exactly a big fan of Trump either. So what's driving Trump to pull the nostalgia card this time? What does he think Carson could do that Colbert or Kimmel aren't doing? Let's dig into Trump's beef with late-night comedy, his peculiar fascination with Johnny Carson, and why this bizarre comment speaks volumes about Trump's view of himself and the world around him. The late-night comedy battlefield. If you've paid any attention to late-night TV over the last decade, you've noticed that Trump is the punchline more often than not. It's almost like a rite of passage for every late-night host to get a few Trump jokes in. And let's be real, there's plenty of material. The man has given comedians enough content to fill a library. Stephen Colbert, for instance, built a large part of his late show persona around his opposition to Trump. He's been one of Trump's most vocal critics, turning his monologues into searing political commentary laced with humor. Meanwhile, Jimmy Kimmel has had some particularly memorable moments roasting Trump, from his political stances to his personality quirks. And Jimmy Fallon, who was once criticized for being too soft on Trump when he playfully tousled the then-candidate's hair, eventually distanced himself and joined in on the Trump jokes. For Trump, this constant mockery is like a never-ending bad dream. He's labeled these hosts as boring, unfunny, and failures. And here's the irony. While Trump thinks these comedians are ruining late-night TV, their ratings and viral clips suggest otherwise. People are tuning in, and Trump's outrage only seems to fuel the fire. But Trump being Trump doesn't just complain. He suggests a solution: bring back Johnny Carson, the man who defined late-night TV for decades, who made Americans laugh without diving headfirst into political wars, and who Trump thinks represents the good old days of comedy. Johnny Carson, the legend. Trump misses. Johnny Carson, for those who aren't familiar, is basically the godfather of modern late-night TV. He hosted The Tonight Show for an incredible 30 years, from 1962 to 1992, and his influence is still felt today. Carson was smooth, witty, and never missed a beat. But most of all, he was a master of comedic timing, delivering jokes that didn't punch too hard, but still landed with precision. Now, why does Trump idolize him so much? The answer lies in Carson's approach. Carson wasn't like today's late-night hosts. He didn't get too political, and even when he did it with a certain lightness. He would poke fun at politicians on both sides, but he never turned his show into a battleground of ideologies. In a way, Carson made fun of everyone, and no one felt particularly attacked. That's exactly what Trump misses. He sees today's hosts as mean and out to get him, whereas Carson's comedy felt more like a gentle ribbing rather than a full-on roast. But wait, Carson did make fun of Trump. Here's where things get interesting, though. For all of Trump's nostalgia about Carson, the legendary host didn't exactly spare him. In fact, Carson had some pretty solid zingers aimed at Trump back in the day. In 1989, Carson joked, "How many of you saw Donald Trump last night on prime time?" Well, I was driving to work today and saw some poor guy on the freeway picking up empty cans. I stopped and said, "Here's $5. Have a nice day, Mr. Trump." And that wasn't a one-off. Carson frequently jabbed at Trump during the late 80s and early 90s when Trump's business dealings and personal life were front-page news. But here's the thing. Carson's jokes about Trump while biting didn't have the same venom as today's late-night critiques. There was a sense of detachment, an air of, it's all in good fun. Trump probably feels like Carson's brand of humor wasn't as personal, and maybe that's why he looks back so fondly. Trump's problem. With modern comedy, it's personal. To understand why Trump would want to revive Johnny Carson from the dead, you have to understand what he sees as the problem with modern comedy. Simply put, he thinks it's too hostile. Colbert, Kimmel, and Fallon don't just poke fun at Trump the public figure, they attack Trump the man. They call out his policies, his scandals, and his behavior, all in a way that feels deeply personal to him. And for Trump, who has always been hyper-aware of his public image, this kind of humor cuts deep. He's never been one to take criticism lightly, and late-night hosts are relentless. Where Carson's jokes might have felt like light teasing, today's monologues often feel like all-out takedowns. Trump has said on numerous occasions that he thinks late-night TV is failing because of how political and mean it's become. He's wrong about the ratings, of course, but in his mind, the solution is to bring back the good old days, back when Johnny Carson ruled the airwaves and jokes weren't quite so vicious. But would Johnny Carson survive in today's landscape? Well, let's play along with Trump's idea for a second. Just an idea, keep in mind. Let's imagine Johnny Carson comes back from the dead and hosts The Tonight Show. Would his style of comedy even work in today's world? Honestly, probably not. As much as Carson is revered as a legend, the late-night scene has evolved. Comedy has evolved. Audiences today expect their late-night hosts to do more than just tell jokes about celebrities and news of the day. They expect commentary, satire, and yes, a bit of edge. Carson, for all his brilliance, wasn't one to wade into the political and social issues that dominate today's discourse. He preferred to keep things light, and while that worked in the 1960s, 70s, and 80s, it might feel a bit out of touch now. People turn to late-night TV not just for laughs, but for insight. They want to see their hosts challenge the powers that be, make sense of the chaos, and yes, provide a little comic relief along the way. Carson, while undeniably funny, might not fit into that mold. And that's the real issue here. Trump's wish to bring back Carson isn't just about comedy. It's about longing for a time when things felt simpler, when late-night TV didn't feel like an attack, and when Trump himself wasn't the constant butt of the joke. Trump's nostalgia for a time that's long gone. There's a reason Trump keeps bringing up Johnny Carson. It's not just about late-night TV, it's about his desire for a time when he felt more in control, when the media wasn't out to get him, at least not as much, and when his public image wasn't constantly under fire. In a way, Trump's longing for Carson is symbolic of his entire political career. He's always played the outsider card, positioning himself against the elite media and the establishment. Carson, with his neutral, detached comedy, represents a time when Trump didn't feel under attack. But the truth is, that time is long gone. The world has changed. TV has changed. And while Trump may wish for the return of Johnny Carson, the reality is that late-night comedy has evolved, and there's no turning back. Trump's fantasy versus reality. At the end of the day, Trump's call to bring back Johnny Carson is a fantasy, and not just because Carson is no longer with us. The late-night world has moved on from Carson's era. While Trump may see Carson as the solution to his late-night woes, the reality is that comedy has changed, and so has America. Trump may never stop being the target of late-night jokes, but maybe it's time he stops fighting it. After all, as the old saying goes, if you can't take the heat, get out of the kitchen, or in this case, the late-night lineup. So, sorry, Trump, but Johnny Carson isn't coming back. It's time to face the music and embrace the comedic landscape as it is today. Who knows? Maybe you'll even find a way to laugh along with the rest of us. So let's all sit back and enjoy the late-night comedy, because whether we like it or not, Johnny Carson's time has passed, and it's time to move forward. If you enjoy this video and want to watch more, don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button below. And let us know in the comments what you think about Trump's nostalgic longing for Johnny Carson. Do you think he would fit in today's late-night world? Keep watching, keep laughing, and keep moving forward.